So, a bit about me. My name's James. I'm one of the talent solutions consultants here at My Kind of Future. And what we do in my team is we help businesses attract, engage, pre-onboard and keep really high quality, diverse talent. And we do that through a blended mix of face-to-face interaction, obviously pre-COVID, and more now so virtually, and digital technology. We've also got Stephanie, who's head of schools. Steph?
Thanks, James. Hi, everyone. Nice to be here. As James said, I'm head of school partnerships at My Kind of Future. My specialism is in careers education, being the advocate for young people in terms of their future careers. At My Kind of Future, myself and my team lead on all the activity that we do that engages young people and inspires them to have successful future careers.
And also we have Khadija here as well. Khadija, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, James. So I am the Senior University Partnership Manager here at My Kind of Future. I lead on all of our attraction activity with our university networks, focusing on peer-to-peer influence through our campus ambassadors and society networks.
Great, thanks for both joining. So without further ado, let us talk a little bit about the market knowledge, and then I'll share what will be covered on the session. So general landscape and how has early talent been affected by COVID-19. So I've got some results here from a survey the ISE completed recently around businesses' initial reaction to COVID-19. So within the graduate and apprentice school leavers space, we're seeing 27% decrease in businesses recruiting less graduates. We've got 23% of businesses that are actually recruiting less apprentices and school leavers. 31% are actually recruiting less interns and placement students, but I think we may see that activity increase as we move to virtual activities. 60% of businesses have actually moved to virtual assessment centres online, and we're seeing businesses actually making that whole process, selection process, and actually making job offers in the virtual space for people to join later in the year. 71% of employers have moved to interviews online, and again we're seeing a huge increase in businesses moving that recruitment cycle online. 40% of businesses and employers are actually concerned about cancelled exams and how that will disrupt their recruitment process. So we know GCSEs and A levels have been cancelled, and Ofqual have given some advice on how those will be awarded, but I haven't seen visibility of that yet. I'm sure Steph may have done. 69% of businesses have cancelled university visits, and we often forget that universities are slightly autonomous institutions and they decide their own grading and how they will be published. So I'm sure Khadija will be able to touch that later on in the slide. In terms of hiring, we are able to see a lot of businesses now, around 40% still carrying on as normal. A big majority just slightly turning that tap off and decreasing, around 20% of employers just slightly scaling down. And then we're seeing around 30% of employers that just really don't know what to do. And I think that may become clearer on a strategy as government change their advice. With regards to the other 10%, they're either slightly increasing or substantially decreasing their hiring altogether, and that's really dependent on sectors and demand. So we've moved to a digital world, and there are lots of lessons that can be learned from this pandemic, and that technology can be a force for good. So let's just discuss a little bit about what we're going to be covering today. So how to attract and engage talent now that we have moved to a digital world is one of the topics. What is the impact of COVID-19 is having on early talent, and what are the challenges for both school leavers, apprentices and graduates? And what can employers do during these times to support, remain agile and reactive? So I'm just going to move through to the next slide. And the first real session we're going to do is we're going to split these up into two sessions. So the first one's going to be around attraction. The second one's going to be around engagement. So how can employers attract their future talent in the current climate? Let's have a look. So what are some of the key challenges, Steph, that you're seeing from an early talent, in the early talent space from a young person's perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, James. One of, underpinning this whole answer, we need to really remember about the increased sense of uncertainty that these young people are feeling. School leavers and young people at this time in the year in their education will always feel some sense of uncertainty as they look at what their next steps might be. But this really has been exacerbated by the current climate. So under all the kind of challenges that these people face, and these young people face, it's really really that underpins it all. Grades, we're hearing a lot about that in the media. So obviously qualifications aren't going ahead as they normally would do, which means that for a lot of young people, they're now expecting grades which are lower than if they had done their exams. So we know a lot of young people often find that they pull it out of the bag during the exam season, but now that opportunity has really been taken away from them, that they're now worrying about what their grades are going to look like, how exactly they're going to be decided, and that ultimately that might become a barrier in them progressing to the next stage of their career that they were hoping for. Really unsure of responses from employers and universities. So any kind of education institutions that they were hoping to go into next, or an employer, they're unsure of the responses, and it's not quite clear for them how employers are responding to this current climate. And we need to remember that the physical structure of their education and day-to-day routine has fundamentally been stripped away from them. So of course this is a really uncomfortable time for young people to be living through, and that can actually lead to many further issues for the young people in terms of well-being. And so really this uncertainty and lack of clarification is the main challenge in terms of early talent and young people taking the next steps in their career.
Great, thanks, Steph. And from your perspective, Khadija, what are you seeing in the university space?
So I think, like James, as you've already mentioned around universities and grading, a lot of unis have taken the safety net approach to grade their students, and that's kind of shifted the focus to employment opportunities that are available or aren't. And current graduates are concerned about the market. How is their graduate scheme going to be affected? Are they going to be starting in September? Is that going to be pushed back? And undergrads are worried about their future as well. So many first and second year students are already witnessing employers pause recruitment for interns. Internships are being cancelled or shortened and or completed digitally. And they are, very aware that it might have a potential knock-on effect for 2021 graduate jobs that are going to be available.
Great. Thank you so much, Khadija. The next question is, what can early talent employers do during this time to attract their future talent digitally? Steph, if we go to you first.
So my main point here will be to continue with the early talent activity that you did have planned for this time in the year. Those who continue to provide support for young people in this space really will be remembered in terms of when they take their next steps and make their decisions. So the first thing is to continue with that early talent activity as much as possible. One of the other things that can be done is to be really clear and consistent with comms around your recruitment plans. So ultimately, we know that certainty in this area will breed attraction to your company and organisation, as so much else is uncertain. So that will be really important. And then in terms of continuing with your early talent activity, obviously innovation is needed in turning face-to-face activity into virtual activity. We'll be speaking about this further a bit later on when I talk about one of the case studies of how one of our partners has done this. And of course, My Kind of Future have been working on this for a number of months now, but we've really been able to see some great innovations turning that face-to-face activity digital. And one of the real opportunities that this context allows us is that it's opened up the opportunity to work with year 11 students. Normally they would be in the midst of exams and revision during the summer term, but now that's not the case. That's opened up that pool of young people to engage with and start attracting them to your organisation.
Great, thanks, Steph. And Khadija, what can early talent employers do during this time to attract university students digitally?
Yeah, so I think that in a normal attraction cycle, there is never normally something that takes place in the summer term. That's always for students to focus on their exams. However, I think kind of in the current climate that we're in, it can still be a good time. Being visible across social media channels, allowing potential candidates the ability to interact with a wide range of employers digitally. That could be through digital takeovers or mentoring schemes. It's a really good way to attract students. And also looking forward to the autumn term. University career services are still open and taking bookings for events and careers fairs. You can also utilize the students' peer-to-peer influence through, campus ambassadors are able to attract students digitally. Committees have gone through their recruitment cycle for next academic year, and they will still be able to build their digital outreach and promote opportunities to the right students.
Fantastic. Yeah, there seems to be a lot of tech options out there for employers to do this activity digitally. So I hope maybe we can share that on a further slide or whatever. How can employers market themselves as an employer of choice during this time, Steph?
And so I think that human element and the human touch is really important at this time in terms of marketing yourselves as employers of choice for young people. So empathy and understanding around the context that career leaders and students find themselves in will be really important and will really enable you to stand out as an employer amidst the other offerings that career leaders and students are getting right now. I'm really happy to talk in further detail about that context and the challenges that career leaders are facing, and because ultimately understanding those will help you in your marketing and put you as an employer of choice. So do get in touch if you'd like to know a bit more detail about that. I've mentioned before the clarity and consistency of messaging, ultimately allowing young people to have certainty around their future career and next steps, and I can't stress that enough how useful that will be, and how appreciated that will be. As an employer, if you have relationships with schools and young people already, now really is the time that they need support and for you to foster these relationships. So I was recently on an ISE webinar, and following that I've had so many queries from career leaders about digital early career activity, which is really showing us that there's a need, and at MKF we're really trying to fill that. So working in partnership with employers is for us is absolutely necessary. And when things do return to normal, it will truly be those organisations that have helped the schools now that will be at the front of the queue and at the front of the minds of those young people who are looking at making their next steps. So my kind of key takeaway from this is do invest in those young people and support them now, and you really will reap those benefits.
Great, Steph. Thank you so much. Where can institutions or organisations or businesses, where do you suggest that they promote that message?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Obviously, there's a lot of places for them to engage with young people and schools, and obviously their own website is a really important one. In terms of where they promote that message, it does really need to be consistent across all platforms. So if they're engaging in social media outlets, then that needs to match up with what they're saying on their website, and of course it will be organisations and intermediaries like My Kind of Future who already have those existing connections with schools and career leaders and young people, that will really be able to increase that engagement right now. So utilising those intermediaries will be really useful.
Great, thank you, Steph. And from your perspective, Khadija, how can employers market themselves as an employer of choice?
Kind of following on from what Steph has said, but I think for graduates, it's just about providing an honest picture with interns that potentially might have joined you over the summer, keeping them updated with what's happening through emails and calls, with graduates that are hopefully still joining you to have a good onboarding process, allowing the new intakes to build relationships with staff digitally, especially if that onboarding process has now increased. And it's really important to kind of know that student influence is a really powerful tool. And by keeping your current cohort engaged, they will no doubt share back with their friends and peers how you as an employer have taken that time to check in with them, which will hopefully kind of put you at the forefront come the autumn term.
Great stuff. Thank you so much, both. I think now's a good time to introduce Stephanie, who's going to run through a client of ours, Dentsu Aegis, on some of the work they're currently doing.
Yes, absolutely. So we thought to, bring some of what we're saying to life. It would be good to use one of the case studies of our current partner of ours. So Dentsu Aegis Network are leaders in marketing and communications, and they're an umbrella organisation for a lot of other companies in that sector. They have a great history of offering really engaging and meaningful activities, early career activities to young people to inspire them and attract them to the sector. So we've worked with them for a number of years. They have a partnership school model. So they have a set number of schools that they work with year on year, and they offer a plethora of early talent activity. So they have work experience, they do school workshops for a variety of year groups, they provide insight days, they have online challenges with face-to-face finale days. They really do cover the breadth of the activity that you can do to engage with young people. And obviously this was all planned for this academic year. So with the onset of the lockdown, we've had to completely pivot. So in just a few months, we've turned all that face-to-face activity into virtual engagement, and I think really importantly, still ensuring that virtual engagement is meaningful and that it's really useful for these young people. So we now have activities such as digital work experience that they're offering. They have a virtual hackathon. We have 2 online competitions, and we're looking at doing some teacher resources as well. So what's really important is that they're showing that as an employer during this time, they're supporting the students and young people when they need it, offering activities that the students can get involved with, and making sure that they're able to respond to the changes and needs of those schools and young people.
Great. Thank you so much, Steph. That's some really good insight into some of the current work we're doing. And I think now is actually a really good time to just quickly pause. And before we go through to the next slide and hand over to Khadija and Steph, I think that really now is a good time to start thinking about that employer value proposition and how that is going to look very different as we move out of COVID-19. And it's just something to think about. So, like, what are the values of this from a business perspective that we'd like to recognise for candidates and employers that are moving through this? And what is it, that experience we want to have with us? So as businesses, and I think we'll really help you become an employer of choice if we recognise those values will change. And it's just really something to think about as we're moving through here. The next set of questions is around engagement. So how can employers maintain engagement once they have begun to establish a candidate cohort, Khadija?
So I think it's important to create a sense of belonging with the incoming cohort. Utilising tech is a very quick and easy way to digitalise belonging, providing young people the opportunity to talk to staff internally and with their peers that will be joining them on various graduate schemes. If your onboarding time has increased, it will be important to support the graduates through this journey. So following on from James, kind of how you talked about the employer value proposition, like well-being is going to be something that's really important to these incoming grads, not only how you support them, but how you've supported your current workforce. And there are very kind of quick and easy ways to support the well-being of the incoming cohort and engaging them. And that could be, through scheduling in monthly one-to-ones with line managers once their exams in June are over. But it will just allow the grads to connect, start building a rapport, and build that sense of belonging that your future talent is looking for.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I think with, especially with hiring Generation Z at the moment, a really hot topic is to have a really robust health and well-being program, and this will really accelerate you as a business to become an employer of choice as well. And Steph, from your perspective, how do employers maintain engagement from a young person's perspective?
Very similar to the points that Khadija just raised. I think that point about belonging is really, really important, especially now that these young people don't have the other social structures that they would normally have to provide that sense of belonging outside of their household. So I do think that's really important, and if you're able to provide that to the young people, then you really will, that really will ensure that engagement. I think it's really important, especially at this time, to give the young people something to be excited and hopeful about. So that really will go quite far in maintaining their engagement. If you're talking about what is to come and reassuring them that it will happen, and creating that excitement, that will be really beneficial. And I've said a few times about being really clear about your plans and consistent with your communications. It sounds simple, but that really will help to alleviate some of the other worries they have and remove any of the barriers that might cause them to disengage. And ultimately, I do feel that the points we're talking about really will ensure that your renege rates are as low as possible.
Thanks, Steph. And what do young people need from their future employers during this period, Khadija?
So reassurance is the biggest thing that they need. Recent studies have shown that graduates are optimistic but anxious about starting their careers, and that is quite normal. But I think the current climate has increased those levels of anxiety, and young people are just looking for that reassurance. It's really quick and easy to do this, running virtual get to know the team sessions, allowing students to have mentors that aren't their immediate line managers, just a place where they can ask questions and get to further understand and know the company before they start.
Great. And from your perspective as well, Steph, please.
I think what I would say is that they need engagement now. They need support right now, and if you're able to do that when times are difficult, then that'd be amazing. Clear comms, have a really consistent and clear stance around the grade criteria, if this is changing, and how you're responding to that as an organisation. I've mentioned before having that deep level of empathy and understanding with their current situations, and providing support that will help them there. But ultimately, I do think employers really have the power to alleviate some of the uncertainty that young people are facing in terms of their future careers, and also to provide that belonging that they do fundamentally crave. So that alleviation of uncertainty and sense of belonging is what they will need from employers right now.
Thank you very much, both. That was really insightful, not just for me, but I'm sure for everybody on the webinar today. Just wanted to talk a little bit about Connector, because I'm sure you've heard it mentioned a couple of times here, and what Connector is, and that it's a cloud-based tool that really enables employers to attract, hire and retain the diverse talent that businesses need. And all the key points that we've raised in today's session, from candidate journey and the employee experience, the importance of belonging, technology in these times being a force for good, and the journey from face-to-face and moving to digital, those are the foundations that Connector are built on. And from digital mentoring to digital modules, all these tools will enable you, the employer, to attract, engage and hire really high quality, diverse talent. And a little bit around that, so we recently managed to secure a partnership with the Department of Education and Nesta to help employees with those at risk of losing their jobs to AI, to help really support and upskill them. And with that said, we've shifted some of that focus and technology and behavioural science to help businesses support furloughed employees. So if anybody would like to discuss this in more detail, I'm I'm happy to do so and give you a demo of the Connect proposition, or Connected for Furlough, and my contact details are on the next slide. Thank you very much for joining today, and if you've got any questions, my email is james.ellis@mykindoffuture.com. There's also Stephanie's email here, and Khadijah's if you need any help from universities and schools perspective, and do reach out. Thank you very much.